like to explain Selenium Webdriver architecture and how it works in the backend. As a prerequisite for this video, either you should have used Selenium before, at least in an entry level, or please see either my previous Selenium introduction video or you do some research on Selenium and get your hands dirty, because otherwise you will find this video not making any sense. It's a bit complex behavior of Selenium WebDriver for beginners. It will be a bit hard. As a Selenium user, one is expected to clearly know how Selenium works and the architecture behind it. This knowledge will help you understand more your Selenium commands and make the framework you write much better, and therein your scripts will also be much well engineered and stable. Also in Selenium interviews for advanced users, this is one of the questions people ask a lot, and it's something that will make people believe that you know what you're doing in the world of Selenium. Not only in Selenium, even Appium, which is for mobile, kind of follows the same protocol and architecture. So Selenium WebDriver is basically a REST API that follows a client-server architecture in a high level. Okay, so it's basically a REST API. So if you see, like, there is a client, Selenium client, and a server, and they interact each other in a protocol like REST, and it's basically called Selenium Wire Protocol before Selenium 4. Now after Selenium 4, it's called W3C Webdriver Protocol. There is a reason behind this change. I will soon explain that. Okay, and as I said, yeah, Selenium is a REST API and it follows this wire protocol. So in a client server, you will have a client like your browser. When you try to go to Google and open your browser, open Google in it, and then you type in something to get your search text, and then you click on the search button and you get the result, right? So basically you're using the browser as a client, and Google server is a server which is basically serving you. So there is a client, your browser, and your server, that is a Google server, which is hosted in the Google machine somewhere. So browser sends an HTTP request to the Google server, which is hosted in Google's machine, and that server which do some computation with the request that you made and sends back your HTTP request. As a result, you see that response Google sent to you to your browser, basically, who is the client, and you see the final result in your Google search page in the UI. That's how basically an HTTP server, client server, works. So client is browser and the server is Google server, okay, which actually served your command and sent back that HTTP response. So only response here in Selenium world is that the code that you actually write. So when you say the code, you will write some code like this, right? Finally, so in your IDE, for example, in for Java world, you use maybe Eclipse or IntelliJ, and you write a code like this, where you say WebDriver driver is a new con driver, and then you make use of that object you created here, and you call each of the commands, Selenium commands, like driver.find element to find an element in the page, or like driver.send keys to send some values into an element, and all these commands, it is actually making a request to your Selenium server. Okay, and the server in turn do some calculations and some computation and process the request that you made to that server, and it sends you back. So as I said, only difference here is the client here is the program that you write, which is where you are writing all this code and you are telling Google what to do, and the server is the server side of Selenium, which Selenium WebDriver, which will take your request and do whatever you asked to do, like open the browser, click on open a particular URL, click on an element, or like drag an element, or click on a button, or like do any interaction on the page, and it when you see that action happening in the UI, you know it is working. And also if there is an issue like an error error message or something when it was doing a particular command that it asked to do, it will send that response back as an HTTP response. Okay, let's see an example. But before that, anyway, let's go to the architecture once more. So as I said, Selenium has a Selenium client and Selenium server, and they interact with a protocol called Json Wire Protocol. And before Selenium 4, it was Json Wire Protocol. Now it is WebDriver 3C, W3C Webdriver Protocol. And basically, Selenium has, as I said, two main components: the HTTP client and HTTP server. So the client is nothing but the code you write. So Selenium exposes APIs. So if you take and first of all, like one very important point is Selenium client. Selenium client comes as libraries. So it can be you can write your Selenium code either in Java or C# or JS, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, any of these client languages. Selenium, there is a lot of client languages that have Selenium libraries already available. So you can write your Selenium code in any of these languages, which are called client libraries or client Selenium program Selenium bindings, and it can be written in any of these main programs which the Selenium project is providing. Even in projects like Go, it has its library, its client library, and using that client library, or you can make a request to the make an HTTP client request to the Selenium server via Json Wire Protocol. And the HTTP server, in our case the Selenium server, is actually part of Selenium that is built by the browser vendors. Browser vendors means, like, for Chrome you have, for Chrome browser you have Google, for Firefox you have Mozilla the company, for IE you have Microsoft, yeah, for Edge again you have Microsoft, Safari you have Apple. So all those companies who have these browsers, they are supposed to write the Chrome driver, or like they are supposed to write the browser driver. So there is a W3C WebDriver protocol that has been written. So this is the website in which you can see the standard library, standard that they have written in the W3 consortium. So every client or every browser company who are developing their browser and who wants to create a driver for Selenium, which will let Selenium users call the browser Selenium server side, and make the browser do whatever interaction they want to do on the page. They should create a browser driver which adheres to WebDriver, adheres to this WebDriver protocol, or to this WebDriver standard. So finally, all these Chrome driver, the server side of the Selenium is written or created by the browser vendors. And what these browser vendors provide is totally in their hand, but they have to completely adhere to the W3C standard we have created for WebDriver. So that makes sure, like, if whatever basic APIs that Selenium is exposing will be able to contact any of these browser drivers and make a request, and in turn it should do whatever the user is expecting it to do, which is written in the client program. So on the left side you have any of those client libraries in our favorite language written by us using the APIs that Selenium provide. And the HTTP server side, you have the browser vendors who create their Chrome driver or Gecko driver or IE driver or Firefox driver or Edge driver or Safari driver, or whatever vendors name their browsers and their drivers, and we interact and write our code. So from here, client library, make the call, and HTTP JSON wire protocol, via the JSON wire protocol we make an HTTP request. It goes to the Chrome driver. In turn, the Chrome driver takes a response, take that request, it convert that request and make and it try to understand the request, and it sends the request to the Chrome browser. So since it's the developers of that browser who write this Chrome driver, they completely know how to make that particular functionality happen inside the browser. So they completely have control of their browser. Nobody has to worry about how that it's happening. It's totally the vendor's responsibility. So they create that driver and they expose the driver. So as a Selenium user, what we had to do is, if we are going to write a Selenium program in Java, just go to the Selenium website, download the client library in our wanted language. For example, if it's Java, just download it either through from here or use Maven or something and get the library. So it will be a jar file, and to bring that jar file into your project, normally as you have already done, you know that you have to use a tool, an IntelliJ IDE or Eclipse, and I will show my browser over here. 1 second. Let me just remove the Emacs screen. Okay, so over here you can see this is my Eclipse IDE, sorry, my IntelliJ IDE, and I have a project over here, and in this project I'm using Maven to give the Selenium dependency. So I'm giving Selenium dependency version 4. So I'm getting the Java libraries, the Chrome driver, Firefox driver, all those stuff, and to bring in that project, so since I'm using Maven, automatically Maven build will get me the libraries from Selenium project. And I have a project, I have a small program written. This is a JUnit program. All it has is a class, Selenium explained. It has just a function, a JUnit function, and it has an annotation to say that it's a JUnit test. And then you have a function. And first what I'm doing is, so after you get your library, your Selenium Java library imported from the downloads or like through Maven, you have to import that particular WebDriver class. And if you're using Chrome, you have to get the Chrome import class from the jar that you imported. You can see all the jars from the Maven. You should see Selenium libraries are also taken from the dependencies that we mentioned in the POM file. Or like you can just download the Java, the Selenium jar, and add it as a dependency into your project. Once you do it, you can import it into your project. Once it's imported, another thing you need to get is the Chrome driver. As I said, the second part, the Chrome driver in our example, or the Gecko driver or Firefox driver or IE driver, these are provided by the vendor. So if you want to get any of those drivers, you can just the easiest way to do is just go to Google and search Chrome driver download for Chrome driver. Go to the project, and you can get the latest version of Chrome driver from there using the latest browser. Just download for whatever platform you are using. If it's Mac, just get the Mac one. So I already have Mac Chrome driver in my machine. I have set it up. So if I again go back to the IntelliJ, you can see over here, you need to set the path first, because the client side you already got it through the Selenium jar that you imported. First download and import it. Then now the server side of Selenium, you have to download. As we saw, we went to the Chrome driver side, we downloaded that Chrome driver, and this is the path in my machine where I'm putting the Chrome driver. Either you can do this, or you can also use homebrew and brew and download Chrome driver, whatever way you want. Easiest way I'm showing here. The simplest thing is download it from the website, and then you have to set the property into your machine, the system property. You can set it like webdriver.chrome.driver. You have to set and tell your machine the Chrome driver is in this path. Once you set that path, you have to normally create an object of the interface WebDriver. So WebDriver is an interface. You're creating a variable of type WebDriver interface, and as I said, every browser driver should extend the the interface type WebDriver, so that all the functions that are set that are mentioned inside the WebDriver should be available in those browsers also, in those browser implementations also. So in our example, it's Chrome driver. So here what you are doing is, yeah, we are telling browser we need, what we need is, we are telling Selenium that what we need is a Chrome driver. You are creating using the new keyword, you are creating an object of type Chrome driver, and we are assigning it to the object driver. Okay, so with the driver object, we are calling one of the functions that Selenium provides, Selenium API provides in the client side. Selenium, so this is Selenium client code. We are writing driver.get, which is a command which tells the Chrome driver implementation, or the driver, whatever browser driver implementation, that to open a particular URL that we want. Okay, and then this is another client command which is telling it find the element in that page which is opened, and then maybe send another command to send some keys, and another command to close the driver instance. So how Selenium, again, let's go back to that page before we run the code. So once more, we have the client side, which is the program that we write using the Selenium exposed APIs. Then we have the server side, which is the driver implementation created by the browser vendor for each of those respective browsers, and in turn it takes the command that we send, converts it into the binaries, and it tells the browser what are the steps to be run and what are the responses that has to send back. So all these interactions between the client, the Chrome driver, and the browser, everything works according to the Json Wire Protocol, or the latest versions W3C Webdriver Protocol. Okay, as I said, W3C Webdriver Protocol is the latest one for since Selenium 4, and everything before Selenium 3 and Selenium RC, it is Json Wire Protocol. Okay, and a bit more into it. So the client, as I said, user will request something in the WebDriver, like open a particular URL, find an element in the page, or click on a button. And on the other side, we have the driver, Selenium driver side of the client server architecture, which is created by the browser vendors. So Chrome, Google does, Firefox, IE or Edge, Microsoft does it, and for Firefox, Mozilla does it. And the browser vendors driver will in turn take our command from the client and execute it in the browser. So yeah, that is the basic structure. And now finally, let's go and see what will happen in action. Once more, the WebDriver, this website, W3C Webdriver Protocol. So all you need to do is just go to page. Yeah, just if you want to get to this page, just go to Google, and you can just search for WebDriver W3C standard. So you can see, like, it will take you directly to that page. So this is a page in which the actual standard that has been implemented is totally given over here. It is something has been approved and standardized. So all the implementation details are given here. So any of the vendors who has to implement that driver will have to completely follow these steps. So if we go inside, we can see each of the commands. So this is a command to create a session. When you create a new session, what are the things should be there? So it should be like a session, this is the API endpoint, and what are the capabilities that you have to queue. So all those information, if you want to make a delete request, what is the path? The path is session ID, and it's a delete request. So all those implementation steps, what are the responses, everything is written over here. You can anytime command visit this. Let's now go to a code and debug and understand what exactly is happening in the backend when you run a code. So as I said, I have a small program over here which first sets the Chrome driver, creates an object of Chrome driver, open URL for now example google.com. We'll try to search. This is the locator of that search field, We will send some values Selenium and we'll close the browser. Let's see what happens exactly in our code. So I will just run this in a debug mode. Okay. So I have put a debug mode inside this executor so that I can show you exactly what's happening in the behind the scene. Just maximize this. Okay. So if I just go inside one step, so first command has been called, that is the browser creating step, which is this particular line. Driver is a new cron driver, that is a step has been executed. So now we came inside the code, which is inside the Selenium API implementation. If you see over here, it already ran the code and it's sent us a response back. So the response is a session ID. So this is so every time when Selenium when we make a call to Selenium using our code and create an object of one of the browser like Chrome driver, as we did here, it creates a new session, Selenium the Chrome driver, or like the particular browser driver implementation, it creates a new session for every new browser it opens. So basically it opens a new browser with a new session, and it go through each of our requests and do the request inside the browser and responds with the whatever response, whether it's success, it will respond with the success status and whatever requests we gave to it, or if it's a false, if it's an error, it will respond with an error message. So once the session has been created, in the response it will send us the session ID. So let's hack this and see how it's working. So I will copy the session value, and to see what exactly happens in the backend, I'm using Postman over here. So I will use a session. So this is the, as we saw inside the implementation page, if you remember, like when you go to a new session, you have to pass /session. Right now let's go to navigator. So first step is get URL, right? So you are going to tell Selenium in our code, if you see, the first step we told Selenium is create a new object. So it created a new object, it opened the browser. You can see the browser is open over here, but it hasn't opened the URL because the command has not been executed yet. So this line 13, it is getting executed now. So we are telling Selenium through the API, through the program, get this URL. So right now we are running that code to get the particular what do you call URL. So I will just come out of this. So we copied the session ID. Now I will just exit the first step, that is creating the session, and go to the next step. Okay, so so now we are going to, this step is over. Now we are going to execute the second step, which is the get command, driver.get, which is supposed to open the URL. So let's go inside that. So see, we are passing the URL, and the endpoint we are going to hit is /URL. So if you come back to the W3C page, you can see for navigate to, so that is the same as get. So it's clearly saying what should be the path. The endpoint should be session ID, and the URL, it should be a post request, and this should be the parameter that we pass, the JSON request that we make. So in Json Wire Protocol or W3C Webdriver Protocol, we pass JSON requests to the HTTP server, the REST server. So this is the payload that we need to send for a GET request. So let's try to replicate what the code is supposed to do through our. So instead of running that code, instead of running this code, what I'm gonna do now is directly use the APM, directly use the Postman and make the same call that our client code is going to do. So instead of the client code executing through Java, and just for your understanding, making the call through this one. So so the session ID I copied from there, I'm pasting it. So I will again show that though. So whatever session Selenium has created for us, I copied that. So if I look over here, this is a session ID, the same session ID, n12, and if I open the executor, there is one more important information I will get. So the current local host, the current port in which Selenium is running, so I need to actually hit this post. Hey, it's in localhost, but I need to specify the right port because each time it will be a different port. So I'm copying the port number. So you don't need to understand all this when you are using Selenium code. I'm just telling this for the sake of understanding the architecture and what exactly happens when you run your Selenium code. So the same thing, the code is just calling each of these endpoints in a more user-friendly manner. So I'm just showing what is happening in the backend in the exact API that the code will be calling. I'm replicating here. So I use the same session ID that is running now. I'm hitting the same endpoint. So as it's a GET request, its path is URL and is a POST request. And if you want to open, let's see, I will open this URL. This is like example.com, so it's not a real URL. Let's see what happens. So I send the request. You can see like I got a response back and it's 200 status. That means like the request was accepted, but there is no value back. It's supposed to send the correct URL back. If I go back to the browser, see, it tried to open example.com taking my request, but since it's not a valid URL, it's getting an error message. So let's still I haven't run this code. The code is stuck in that point. So again, let's try sending another request with google.com. So www.google.com. Let's make the request again to the same server. And you will see, yeah, see. So and if I change it, so if I give a wrong request, it says that the request is not accepted because it's saying invalid argument because it's not a right URL. Let me say google.com. Try to open that, but it didn't work. So yeah, I'm just basically asking the Chrome driver to take my this command, and do whatever I'm telling it to do. And the Chrome driver has been implemented in such a way that it adheres to this WebDriver protocol. So whatever I see over here, if I follow that and make a request, my Chrome driver will follow that and take the request. In turn, it sends it to the browser and make the browser do whatever I want to do. So if I want to go do another request, let's try another request. What will be okay? Let's get the URL. Okay, get the current URL. So to get the current URL, all I need to do is the other one was navigate to. Now it is get the current URL. So to get the current URL, what I need to do is make a get call. So change this to a get call. The path is same. So just make a send. See, it has taken, it's got me the current URL. If I need to get the title again, it's a get call, I know, and just pass in title. So yeah, it's getting me the title. So whatever I need to do, if I send the right body and the request, it will give me the response. So basically, Selenium is nothing but client server architecture, and in the server side you have the browsers, the vendors implementation of each of the browsers server. Selenium server, and on the left side, the client side, we have a Java, our programming language bindings for Selenium client. You can use any of them of your interest, and you can use them. That is basically how it works. Everything works under the wire protocol, Json Wire Protocol for anything before Selenium 4, and W3C Webdriver Protocol for anything after Selenium 4 or from Selenium 4. Okay, and yeah, so and everything is an HTTP request and HTTP response. What else? That's it. So if you have any questions, please put it in the comment. I will try to answer that or create a new video if that is required. I hope you understood the basic working of Selenium, and hope it helps in your career in test automation. Thank you.